時間は永遠ではない。
If I were to ask you if these two girls were a couple, would you say that they are? I'm sure most people viewing this on the outside of the Sound Euphonium fandom would assume so. However, according to the production studio of the anime and the creator of the original work, that's simply not the case. Each of them has a straight romance interest, so how could they possibly be a lesbian couple? There's no Yuri label on this work of art. The two girls are just, as historians would likely call them, good friends. And I think that is a load of horse shit. Sound Euphonium, or Hibike Euphoniamu in Japanese, is a slice-of-life drama anime based on the light novel series by Takeda Ayano, about a high school band called the Katauji High Wind Ensemble. The light novels ran in the web magazine Kono Manga ga Sugoi between 2014 and 2018, with the anime adaptation from Kyoto Animation running from 2015 to present. As a musician myself, and someone who was in music programs all throughout high school, discovering this anime while I was in college was a fulfilling and joyful experience. In my recent rewatch, however, I found myself repeatedly frustrated by how much the show's writing and animation pushes you to root for things that will never happen in the run of the show as it is currently, both large and small scale. The protagonist of this shoujo series is Omai Kumiko, a Kansai girl who plays the euphonium, as if that wasn't apparent from the title. The series comprises 2 seasons, along with 2 compilation films that cover her first year of high school. The spin-off film, Liz and the Bluebird, and the third film take place over the course of her second year, with the upcoming 3rd season delving into her 3rd and final year. During this time, she forms many close relationships with other members of the wind ensemble, such as Kawashima Midori, Kato Hazuki, Tanaka Asuka, and her closest confidant, Kosuke Reina, whom she went to middle school with. She's also rejoined by her childhood friend Tsukamoto Shuichi, who has feelings for her. In their first year of high school, the wind ensemble gets a new advisor, Noboru Taki, whom Reina has a crush on. He turns around the bleak outlook the students have on their wind ensemble and guides them towards being one of the most skilled student bands in Japan. This is the crux of the show's drama, as the majority of the stakes are on the success of the band in music competitions to achieve their overall goal of a gold rating at the national competition. There are, of course, smaller and more interpersonal problems that arise from this group of high schoolers in dire need of therapy, but the majority of them are smoothed out by people finally talking to one another in order to be understood, as typical for a melodrama. Pairing the incredible orchestral score by Matsuda Akito with fluid Kyoto Animation Studios' production quality lends to one of the most realistic representations of musical performance across all media, with some shortcuts taken here and there to make animating the entirety of the 26 episodes easier on the animation team. Sound Euphonium is one of the best and most polished works to come out of Japan, with one peculiar problem. The creators and fans disagree on the romantic pairings for characters completely. Before I talk about queerbaiting and Sound Euphonium, I want to take a step back and talk about the concept in general. Queerbaiting, for those who are unfamiliar with the term, is a marketing technique for fiction and entertainment in which creators hint at, but do not explicitly depict, same-sex romance or other LGBTQ representation. This is typically done in America and other Western countries to appeal to queer audiences by implying allyship while not alienating homophobic markets or invoking serious censorship. However, in Japan, that reasoning is less likely, as the gay community is not as protected or safeguarded. They are working on this. Instead, anime producers and creators will produce works that are queerbaiting in order to draw in yaoi and yuri fans, those being boys and girls love, respectively. Both of these groups are rather large niches of the otaku culture in Japan that are often left out in marketing, with only a handful of light novels, manga, or anime made for them by large companies. There is a rather sizable number of freelance circles, tsukuru, making yaoi and yuri doujinshi. However, the majority of those works are all 18+. To put into perspective what queerbaiting is, let's talk about a few examples. A notable and admitted example is that of Korra and Asami's relationship in The Legend of Korra. The showrunner specifically stated they left it purposefully ambiguous in the show, and confirmed it as canon in the post-show comics at a later date. This was done for the typical reasons American media does queerbaiting that I listed earlier. Another relatively contentious example is that of Becca and Chloe from Pitch Perfect. There was apparently a deleted scene in which they share a kiss in Pitch Perfect 3, which was utilized in adverts on Snapchat, but was removed from the final film. This was a perfect example of how the fetishization of lesbians, as admitted in interviews by a scriptwriter for the trilogy, is used to queerbait both gay and straight communities, as is typical of anime targeting the Yuri fanbase. Particularly similar in style of queerbaiting to sound euphonium is Wednesday and Enid from the Netflix series Wednesday. Both of them have male love interests that don't work out in the show, and Netflix hit replies on tweets that called Wednesday herself gay during an event they hosted called Wednesday. Just as with when Claire, as they are called, Kumiko and Reina, or Kumire, is the most enthusiastic ship among the fandom.
And they were roommates.
Oh my god, they were roommates.
そばにいてくれる。うん。裏切らない。もしも裏切ったら殺していい。本気で殺すよ。レイナならしかねないわ。それが分かった上で言ってる。だってこれは愛の告白だから。
Understanding queerbaiting a little better, I'd like to move on to the topic at hand, Sound Euphonium's extensive use of queerbaiting. To start with, Kumiko and Reina themselves. This is seen in them holding hands, falling asleep on each other's shoulders, going on dates, confessions of love, and other activities typically portrayed by straight couples in romance anime. It seems incredibly unrealistic and disingenuous of the production team behind the show, especially from a directorial standpoint, to feature so many implicative moments of them while refusing to go the actual distance and make an actual lesbian show. Several other Yuri pairings exist in the show, although more fluid and unstructured. For example, the club president, Ogasawara Haruka, has two pairings, who are also paired with each other and at least one other girl, those being Tanaka Asuka and Nakaseka Kaori. Asuka is often similarly paired with Kumiko and Midori, though I myself do not respect that ship since Asuka continuously refuses to use Midori's preferred name. Yoshikawa Yuko outright confesses her undying love for Kaori on a regular basis, and is given a significant amount of romantically charged dialogue with Nakagawa Natsuki. There are countless more Yuri pairings to list, and it's about to grow even more in Season 3. Not only is the show one of two examples listed for anime on the Queerbaiting Wikipedia page, but countless forums, Reddit pages, and fan wikis are filled with fans discussing the show's blatant teasing of Yuri couples to fans without actually delivering. Maybe it's because the showrunners are getting away with it, so to speak, that they feel confident they don't have to directly address the inherent queer subtext of the anime. Regardless, Kyoto Animation makes a huge portion of their marketing, runtime, and adaptation changes to highlight Kumiko and Reina's relationship in comparison to that with their respective straight pairs. One could be forgiven for thinking they were actually rooting for the Yuri couples to form. However, I don't believe KyoAni would ever admit that on record. Before I discuss Kumire a bit more, and the queerbaiting done with them, I want to touch briefly on Liz and the Bluebird. The spin-off film stars another pair of girls in the wind ensemble who are in turn used as queerbait, middle school best friends in their third year of high school. Oboist Yoroizuka Mizure and flautist Kasuki Nozomi learn to let go of their relationship as they diverge in life. The film dives into the universal traits of overcoming codependency with a loved one and fear of upsetting a person you hold close to your heart. If one of the girls were replaced with a boy, it would be considered a masterpiece of romantic fiction. Despite many fans of the film labeling it as Yuri, you wouldn't be able to find it under that tab on a streaming service. They are mirrored in the work by a companion couple, the titular Liz and the Bluebird. However, even though the movie beats around the bush when describing both relationships, they blatantly say friendship concerning them. Yet, the actual scene where the characters finally allow themselves to move on is just as poignant and powerful as Gojo and Geto's KFC breakup scene, albeit a much more mutual feeling between the girls. You follow each of them dealing with the grief of losing a lover. Mizure and Nozomi even have a whole arc devoted to what they mean to each other in Sound Euphonium, further cementing just how serious their bond is.
Kumiko! やっと見つけた。昼から合奏練習。 ごめん、今行く。
These couplings pale in comparison to the level of romantic tension between Kumiko and Reina. It would not be a stretch to say that the plot of the anime is tied to Kumire's relationship. The inciting incident, rising action, and climax of the first season is based upon their bond with each other. The two girls are mirrored and directly impacted by the other Yuri pairs in the show, and even have a rivalry of sorts with Yuko and Kaori. Where you have 7 minutes of an episode devoted to the time Kumiko and Reina are alone together, supporting each other's efforts to grow or shine, you'd see only 30 seconds to a minute of development in their half-hearted or even illegal straight pairings. Takeda Ayano wanted the straight pairs to be official, especially that of Kumiko and Shiichiro, but Kyoto Animation specifically highlights Kumire in a far more significant way. They continuously linger a little too long on them. This often leaves the viewer questioning, what was the point of all that effort? Why put so much passion into something that won't even pan out? Personally, I believe KyoAni's answer to those questions is because lesbians sell, and if we did that, the lesbians wouldn't sell. In the trailer for the upcoming season, the editing team made sure to highlight a time when they were alone. This would also imply that the persons involved in the making of Sound Euphonium are fully aware that they are queerbaiting, and that the characters themselves are queer. That last one is definitely true, but are unwilling to publicly admit it. Otherwise, it would be ludicrous of them to spend what is clearly a large portion of the animation budget adding to scenes with Kumiko and Reina, instead of scenes with Kumiko and Shuichiro. Even though in Our Promise, Kumiko and Shuichiro try going out, they're still sidelined as a couple for emotional beats between other Yuri couples and used to show how Reina and Kumiko support each other. You may be wondering, Emilia, with all these examples of Kumire you've given, how can you possibly say this is queerbaiting? It's clearly just subtext, not queerbaiting. And to that I say, why thank you, faceless viewer. What a perfect segue you've given me to discuss exactly why this can't be called representation. For starters, as I've previously stated, the creator of the series and KyoAni have specifically stated that the work is not Yuri, and denied blatantly that Kumire is an official canon couple. To follow that up, both of them are given their individual straight pairings that are affirmed by the creators as the intended romantic interests. To touch on those straight pairings, Kumiko and Shuichiro have attempted being a couple before. This ended in a rather unsatisfying manner for the both of them, with each leaving it open to an unlikely future together. Reina's love, on the other hand, is a difficult crime to root for, as it is for her 34-year-old teacher, Taki-sensei. Taki-sensei is shown through the entirety of the work's run to be a responsible adult with healthy boundaries, but equal care for every student in his purview. To top that off, he is still very much in love with his late wife. If you swing it the other way and suggest that the fandom is reading too into things, you'd be wrong as well. These characters are stated to be best friends by the creators. The characters themselves, however, treat each other as love interests and go so far as to share romantic confessions. So, obviously, there's some disconnect between the creators, the work itself, and the fans of the series. Somehow, there are multiple implied Yuri relationships that are not given respect as real couplings. I believe this is primarily due to the way queer relationships are viewed as a phase for young girls in Japan. Not that lack of representation is entirely due to that aspect, but rather that it is the major cause for this phenomena. A significant number of Yuri works describe queer romance as something girls are expected to grow out of. With Season 3 upcoming at the time of recording, I have hope that KyoAni's use of queerbaiting will cease. I don't mean this in a way that they will make Kumire an official pairing. That would stray too much from the source material. I think the best move they can make going forward is to stop putting emphasis on queer pairings and put a more substantial focus on the straight ones. As much as I would prefer the canonization of more lesbian couples, I know this is rather unlikely. However, with the aforementioned trailer already showing signs of queerbaiting, one can only hope that they chose to stop stringing along fans who are queer or allies of the community. While this show is controversial for its depiction of women as somewhere between close friends and lovers, it has remained impactful for some members of the Yuri community, myself included. As a closet lesbian in college, when I first watched the series, I was able to feel connections with the characters and their feelings. Though my opinions about the show as a whole have changed, I can't help but anticipate Season 3 with excitement, albeit excitement unrelated to the possibility of a canon lesbian pairing. My beliefs on the sexualities of the characters aside, Reina is a bisexual queen and Kumiko an aro ace icon, the work is still valuable as one of the better shows depicting ensemble performance and music in not only anime, but the majority of media. If only the showrunners could stop themselves from using queers to get rich.